Okay, so it is 3:34. If I haven't thanked you already, thank you everyone for joining us. We're happy to be kicking off the 2025 Hill Runner Summer of Action. There's a lot of really interesting things going on legislatively in DC right now, and we're just really happy to partner with the Hill Runners again on this initiative. With that, I'm going to kick things over to Mike Watley, the Vice President of State and Local Affairs and Grassroots, who is going to kick things off for us.
Thanks, Grant, and I'll be pretty quick. Thank you all for joining us. This is exciting. The Summer of Action is the most visible part of the Hill Runner program. It's a great opportunity for you all to meet with lawmakers back in district, be it in your restaurant or in a district office. We had 50 plus great meetings last year. We're trying to increase that pretty significantly this year to 75 or more meetings. So we're really excited to kick this off. Lots happening in DC. Huge action in the House recently on the tax package, over to the Senate now, but just so much happening. So this is a great opportunity for you to meet with lawmakers. Just as a side note, Aaron Fraser and I did a event last week with Republican House district directors just to talk about the program and the roundtable program that we do. And district directors were super excited to meet in person with members of Congress and restaurateurs. They want to hear from us. They want to hear how things are going business-wise, how legislation is impacting you. So we're excited. There's great momentum, and it's the beginning part of June. So we had a couple months ahead of us here. So we're really excited. But if we can be a resource in any way, shape, or form for these meetings, please don't hesitate to engage myself or Grant or any member of the association team. So Grant, let's kick things off.
Okay, so for some of you who are new to the program, just some of our vision behind the Summer of Action. This was an initiative we started last year, and our goal was to get all 210 plus Hill Runners to try and schedule something in person with their member of Congress during the summer recess periods. In DC, there is a understood reality that during August, during the summer recesses, DC gets really quiet, but it's kind of the inverse for grassroots advocacy, and this is when we should be the loudest. It's the times where we know exactly where our elected officials are going to be, and that's at home. They're going to be walking in 4th of July parades. They're going to be taking constituent meetings in their district office, and we wanted to capitalize on that and really create opportunity for our Hill Runners to bring members of Congress into their spaces and do these district level meetings. Our goal is to do 75 of them or more this year. We had a great year last year, and we're excited to build on that success. So we have 3 different options for the Hill Runners to try and meet with these members of Congress. The first option that we give is giving a restaurant tour. So a restaurant tour is a very unique opportunity for you guys as operators to showcase your restaurant, your employees, and really your hospitality and your business to a member of Congress. On the flip side, for a member of Congress, this is a very attractive opportunity for them to get out there, pound the pavement a little bit. It's a great photo op for them too. So it's really, serves both parties in this instance. And so a couple things for you as you try to plan a possible restaurant tour. So plan the tour out ahead of time. These meetings can be pretty brief. Members of Congress have 3 to 4 weeks to do 100 different things in their district. So you may only have 15 to 20 minutes with a member of Congress. So plan out the visit, walk through your space, think of where you want to take the member of Congress, who you want them to talk to, and really just have a plan in place before they come through the door. Second thing you want to do is make sure to notify your employees. The member will definitely want to talk to your employees. That's a big part of why they would want to do something like this. And just make sure that your staff know. and you can have briefing sessions with them. Our team is happy to provide resources for you to make sure they're in the loop on things as well. But your staff should be notified that a member of Congress is going to swing by the restaurant for lunch. Prepare. So this is going to be a common thread amongst all of these different types of meetings, but make sure that you know the issues and that you know who your lawmaker is and the types of issues that they stand for. It's possible that there's one of our issues that they're very hostile towards. You want to make sure that you know what that is. You might not want to bring it up as your meeting is going on. So just make sure that you have a good knowledge of the issues and the lawmaker that you're meeting with. So for your day of preparation, always arrive early. I think restaurateurs naturally are very good at that, but make sure that you arrive early. You're there when the member of Congress and his staff or his or her staff arrive, and make sure to take photos and share them on social media. That's something we're going to touch on a lot more as this presentation goes on, but ultimately also be respectful of the member's time. Like we said, they may only have 15 to 20 minutes to do this visitation, and just make sure that you can get them in and out in whatever time that they've specified. And honestly, most importantly, just make sure to follow up with the member of Congress. A lot of these meetings will go unheard if you as an operator don't follow up. I think staff appreciate this on a Hill staff level, on a district staff level, and a member also appreciates knowing that this sort of stop was worth their time. So just make sure that you follow up with their office, send them any any PDFs that I think somebody's off mute, and send them any resources that their team needs. Just make sure that you follow up with them within a week after your restaurateur. The next option that you could take for one of these district meetings is hosting a restaurant roundtable. Roundtable discussions are meetings between small groups of local restaurant leaders and the legislator and their staff. This is a really good opportunity for you as a grass tops advocate, as a Hill runner, to be the host for other restaurateurs in your community, other members of your state association, and using your restaurant as a place where all of you can meet together and have this conversation with the lawmaker. These are incredibly valuable. They give us really good insight into what the member's thinking and give the member a great opportunity to hear from not just one person, but multiple people within one community. In planning a restaurant roundtable, this is a bit more of a lift logistically. And so the first thing that you should do if you want to host a restaurant roundtable is reach out to your state restaurant association and to the association. We are here to help. Your state association is here to help. That should be your first step in planning a restaurant roundtable. Second thing you'll need to do is promote. Work with your state restaurant association to invite restaurant leaders and your lawmaker. Your state restaurant association will have a very good sense of the other restaurateurs in your community who should be at the meeting and will be an invaluable resource in bringing those people to the table. As with the other meetings, prepare, plan ahead, script out the meeting and who is going to speak on what issue. There could be operators who are in attendance that are more equipped to speak on, say, the Credit Card Competition Act, and maybe another operator is stronger on tax issues. This should be a conversation that's had before the meeting so that your team and all of the operators that are attending this roundtable have a good plan of attack and you can all be on the same page with messaging. For the day of a restaurant roundtable, as I said with the restaurateur, make sure that you're there early. You can get in any last minute strategy that you need to have with the other operators in attendance, and then please make sure to take photos and share them on social media. And also be respectful of the lawmaker's time. And again, follow up. The follow up is honestly the most important part of this process. Just make sure that the lawmaker and his staff know that their time was appreciated and that this was valuable for them to do, and make sure to report back to us on how the meeting went. Last option for doing a district level meeting is just meeting in a district office.
Is now joining.
I see your hand raised. Give me just 1 second, and then we'll open up to questions for a moment before we move on. Last option is meeting in a district office, because sometimes a member of Congress won't have time to come by a restaurant. Maybe they're just in their district office for a few days, and then they're leaving on an international delegation trip. So sometimes this is the only option that a member of Congress will have. That is totally fine. These types of meetings are still very, very valuable. You'll just need to prepare for them a little differently. So every member of Congress has district offices. Senators sometimes will have multiple spread throughout the state. But to prepare for these, just know the issues, know the lawmaker, like our other types of meetings. Script out what you personally want to say. Sometimes these meetings will be shorter in nature, maybe only 10 to 15 minutes. So it's important that you walk into the meeting knowing what you want to talk about and what data points, say, from your restaurant that you want to share. On the day of, make sure to arrive at the office early. Maybe you have to wait for a few minutes, but then also make sure to take photos, share them on social media, and keep your meeting tight, especially if you were in the district office in the lawmaker's space. We don't want you to get caught off, so make sure that you're respectful of the lawmaker's time. One that's important for a district office meeting is get to know the district staff. The district staff for a member of Congress have their finger on the pulse of the district a bit more than the DC staff might, just because they're there. You know, they're members of your community who happen to work for your member of Congress, but from home. So it's really important to get to know them and build relationships with them as well. And then again, just make sure to follow up and thank the lawmaker and their staff and let us know how your meeting went. We'll make sure that you have all of our relevant policy briefs to share with the office, so that if they have any questions, they can follow up with us as well. Okay, take a quick second for some questions. Ellie, I see your hands up.
I just wanted to add, because I've done what I've learned from doing the roundtables. A lot of times, I found that it's best to go to the representative and see which area and location they prefer. Because I did find that they would had a strong preference. So
yep, absolutely defer to the member on what works best for them. Brooks, I see your hand up too.
I want to mention one kind of just outside the box meeting that y'all can have with the members too, is if you have a ribbon cutting or a celebration or an anniversary that comes up, a lot of times that's a great way to get to invite some people in a less formal standpoint. I think that my interactions with people is the lawmakers enjoy being able to get out and do something where they're not hearing, somebody in their ear all the time. And it's just all about relationship building. So for us, we just turned 60 years old. Senator Blackburn was gracious enough to come and join us. Senator Haggerty wrote a letter celebrating the occasion. Tennessee Speaker of the House, county commissioners, deputy mayors, those kind of things. We were able to get people here to celebrate a wonderful milestone, but it's also all relationship building. So don't sleep on the outside the box ways to get somebody involved in something at your place.
No, absolutely. And congrats on 60 years, Brooks. It's a big milestone.
Brooks, you don't look a day over 40, so fantastic news on that front. And I'll throw out as well that you raise an interesting point, Brooks. A lot of these members of Congress, when I appreciate Grant saying take pictures and put it on the gram because it didn't exist otherwise. Members of Congress are doing the exact same thing. So most members are going to be delighted to be at Brooks's 60th, and they're not there. They want the visibility. They want to take a photo with Brooks in the dining room, and they're going to put it on their platform. So this is not only an exercise of you acting on behalf of the industry. I'll be honest, there's definitely a little bit of self-promotion in it for you all as well, because let me ask you this, Brooks. Did Senator Blackburn post about you all?
Yeah, I think she posted on social media. We were included in her newsletter that went out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously local media was there, and so they were including her in the coverage and whatnot.
But it's a big virtuous circle. Everybody's happy that the other person's there, and you have a bigger pop on social and on exposure as a result. Fantastic.
She spent about an hour and a half with us. I mean, so
wow.
For a U.S. Senator, that's a long amount of time to do one stop. She came in for lunch, and her team was there, and they were getting their own pictures to be able to use for her social media things and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Okay. We're going to move on to our next section here, but just some tips about before your meeting, during your meetings, after your meetings. So when you go to set up your meetings, first and foremost, make sure to craft an invite that is short and to the point. A lot of these district schedulers or the DC schedulers are fielding, a lot of different meeting requests. And so make sure that it is has a good summary of what you want to talk about, and then also locations and times, and make sure to be flexible with whatever will work best for your lawmaker. Secondly, just make sure to work closely with the staff. The staff of a member are the gatekeepers in a sense, and so they will be the ones who are working with the lawmaker to schedule these things, solidify logistics for coming to your restaurant, and you should always treat them in the same way that you treat the lawmaker. This program is all about relationship building, and that goes all the way from the staff assistant all the way up to the member of Congress. So those relationships are important. And lastly, be patient. Like we've said, these lawmakers are often busy. They are also trying to make the most of these summer recess periods, so they will have other obligations. And just follow up if necessary, and just be patient with the office as they are trying to figure out if your meeting will work for the member. So before your meeting, we talked over a couple of these, but just make sure that you know your issues. Pick 2 priority issues from the things that we're working on right now, and really familiarize yourself with them and the related asks. These meetings are great exposure, but a member of Congress will walk into them with the expectation that you're there to want to talk about something specific. So do your best to know which of 2 issues you want to talk about, and what as an operator and as an advocate, what your ask is of the member of Congress. Research your member. Our team is more than happy to assist you with researching a member of Congress. Just make sure you know their issues on our policy. Maybe they're very anti the Credit Card Competition Act, so it might not be the best choice to bring that up in a meeting. Maybe it would be better to focus on tax policy. Our team is here to assist with that in any way that you need, but it is an important step in preparing for your meeting. And lastly, just talk numbers. Members of Congress value your stories as operators, as community members, and as the people that this legislation will really affect. And they love it when you can bring hard numbers to your meeting. I think a great example on the Credit Card Competition Act, one of our Hill runners from Florida, Bill Lay, who I think is on this call, shared with members of Congress a couple weeks ago that the money he could save with lower interchange fees could help him fund other programs that would be very improve the quality of life of his employees. John, I see you have your hand raised too. And so members really appreciate when you can share these hard numbers, hard facts with them. And that really can help inform their decision making when it comes to a vote on these issues. John, I see your hand up. And Jeannie, I see you right after him.
Yeah, I was just going to say that one of the things that Jay Johnson's on the call when he was up at the PAC, he had a copy of his most recent credit card statement, and we showed it to the congressman's aide. And man, you want to talk about influence, or it made an impression, a huge impression. So, I mean, right after that, I sent our congressman like 3-month statements and just showed how much we were spending on credit card fees. And it blows them away when you show them how much that is in your budget.
Absolutely. Jeannie?
Yes, hi, thank you. So my question is, I mean, obviously, if we're meeting, whether it's someone from Congress or a senator, and we know that they don't agree with us on certain issues, but do agree on others. Do you feel the conversation is just best to stick with the positive, or do you feel that it's still important to bring up why our position is what it is on an issue that they may not agree with?
I can add. I don't know if you're getting ready to speak, Sean. I'll just give from my perspective. It depends upon the circumstance. I think sometimes it's important for people to know when they are voting against us or opposing us, but it doesn't mean that you have to be hard on it. It can also be a situation where you say, look, we feel strongly about this position and this is why. From what we understand, you might be in a different place, but we just want you to know our perspective. I wouldn't drill into it much beyond that because you don't want to, have it be a confrontational situation, but it is important for them to know when they're on the other side of us on an issue, just because from my perspective, they might be more inclined to be helpful later on when there's something that they can, if they know that they've had to say no over and over on other things. That's my perspective.
I agree with Matt 100% and would just also add, Jeannie, what we need is for members of Congress to go back to Washington in the fall saying, God damn, pardon my language, I'm hearing it on swipe fees. I know I told the banks I was with them, but man, I met with the restaurants. I'll tell you that Matt and the coalition folks on this, they're going to be hearing from other people as well. It's not just restaurants. So the more that this turns into a painful subject, the more traction we get. So absolutely agree with Matt. But it's a really good question, Jeannie, because I know you want to use your 30 minutes effectively. They need to at least get the shout out of, oh, by the way, I know you're not with us, but swipe fees really matter. We're dying on this issue.
Thank you.
Jay, I see your hand went up next.
Yeah. Well, just as long as we're talking about the swipe fees, a few things that I've mentioned to congressmen and senators that they're just not aware of. First of all, the fact is that when we take a credit card, the company, we pay credit card fees on the sales tax that we're collecting. So, we collect X dollars of sales tax, we pay that to the government, but it costs us whatever our fee is, 2.5%, 3%. They also don't realize that we pay that on tips. It really, really adds up. And then I have also done some comparative analysis within our company and discovered, for example, that credit card fees are more than we spend for health insurance for our people. And when you give those sorts of examples, they say, wow, we never thought about that. So just some talking points that may bolster our arguments.
No, absolutely.
I also have never, honestly, I still grumble at the credit cards for, why isn't it a per transaction fee? Why is a $250 credit card swipe so much more than someone that's just buying a burger, fries, and a Coke to go? It's data. It's the same packet of data. The Brinks truck isn't any bigger because it's a $250 check versus a $15 check. Now, the banks will say it's because of the dollar amounts, and sometimes they have to hold on to the money. But my point is just to sort of point out, this is a flawed system that you all are operating under.
Sean, there's a very simple answer why it is. It's because they can.
Yes, sir. You're right, Jay. You're right.
That's all.
But if you buy a pack of gum at the 7-Eleven, or if you buy a Mercedes and you put it on your credit card, you have the same degree of fraud. You have the same that packet is your information is, it's one packet, $250,000, $2.50. It costs the same amount of money to secure that packet and to run the routing and the cables and all that. Anyway, all I'm saying, and Jeannie, of course, got you and me fired up, Jay, because she said the word swipe fees. So thanks, Jeannie. But it's because it's just on some of these issues, it's okay for you to say, boy, I sure don't understand the status quo. And I would better if there was competition. Because as Jay said, the reason why a Mercedes costs way more, that packet of data, than the gum, it's because you have a duopoly and because they can write the rules.
And there's nothing wrong with expressing to your congressman or senator that you disagree with their position on it. That's what this is all about.
Yeah. Because, by the way, Jay Stieber disagrees with Dick Durbin on a lot of issues in the state of Illinois, but on swipe fees, they're in absolute violent agreement. And what I appreciate about Jay is Jay has an ongoing relationship with Dick Durbin, who probably supports getting rid of the tip credit, to be honest. But he's absolutely a rock star for us on swipe. And Jay and Jeannie and all of you know that we are not a single issue industry, and we're and Matt lives this as well. There are Democrats and Republicans that are great on some issues and miserable on others, and we're going to remind them that they're being miserable, but we're going to do it with a smile and with support and say, but thank you for the things that you're a rock star on. That's how we're going to move the ball forward.
And it's a matter of respect too, because I've introduced Senator Durbin at a number of things, and he has said on occasion, thank you, Jay, I know we disagree on a lot of things.
Yeah.
But we can talk about things that maybe we can get closer on.
You're right.
Yeah.
All right. So now that Jay and I have vented, I'm waiting for Matt to lose his mind and dive into swipe fees. But we'll Matt, we pay Matt we pay his therapy bill for that. So sorry for the distraction, Grant. Thank you for the comments, Jay.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jay. I'd like to keep us moving forward. Ellie, I know you have your hand up. If it's a question pertaining to before the meeting, absolutely go ahead. If not, we are going to talk policy at the end of the call, so there will be plenty of time to talk shop near the end. Ellie, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, this can probably wait till the end. It was just whether the state battles that are going on with the credit card fees are helping.
Let's punt for one more second. That's a great question, but I respect what Grant's trying to achieve here. But we will put a pin in that. We'll be right back.
Yes, absolutely. So during your meeting, just a couple things to be reminded of. Stay on topic. Like we've mentioned already, your meeting could be as short as 10 minutes. It really just depends on the time that the member has. Make that time count. Pick two key issues. Try to stay as locked in on those two issues as you can. Limit the small talk and the introductions. I struggle with this one sometimes. Don't burn all of your time that you have with a member talking about sports or just how things are going. That kind of relationship building is valuable, but when you have a very short amount of time, just try and keep your meeting tight. Secondly, make the ask. We talked about this a little bit, but after you've laid out your points, make a specific ask of the member of Congress. Will you co-sponsor the Credit Card Competition Act? It is a good example. These are things that are not only important for a member to hear and be asked, really put them on the spot, but they're also things that admittedly we can keep track of on our end who has said yes and who has said no. And that provides really great follow-up information for Sean, Matt, and Dan to guide their efforts here in DC. Finally, no politics. This is something that is kind of an oxymoron because what we're doing is political in nature, but do your best to keep personal politics out of the meeting, especially avoid campaign, PAC, and financial support meetings because it really blurs the line on congressional ethics, and we don't want you or your member of Congress to get in trouble. Lastly, after your meeting, I already alluded to, this is arguably the most important stage of anything you can do to be prepared for this meeting is just make sure to follow up with your member of Congress. It's really important. It reminds them of the meeting. It reminds them of how the meeting went. And also it shows the member and their staff that you deeply care about these issues. If you keep following up with them, keep banging the drum, hopefully at some point they will listen. Thank them for their time. Thank them for the meeting, and just make sure to follow up within a week. Report back to us on how the meeting went. Like I said, this is really important for our efforts in DC, just so we know who's a no, who's on the fence, and who's a yes. And that is very helpful to our lobbying efforts on Capitol Hill. So we know where Matt needs to walk into an office and twist a staffer's arm if need be. And finally, and we're going to kick to Kristen, who's our manager of advocacy comms right after this, but go social. Share a photo from the meeting on your social pages and make sure to tag Restaurants Act and your lawmaker. Like Sean said, they love this sort of social media exposure as well. And I'm sure that if you post a picture that they will post it back. Ellie, I see your hands up.
No, sorry, I forgot to take it down.
Oh. Brooks, I did see your hand go up. I think intentionally.
One quick thing on the social. So we had about 10 different people from state, local, all the way to the federal level speak at the 60th ribbon cutting. And it's generated, we did a thank you post to each person individually on social media. So it's content for us that goes forward. And the great thing too is those type of posts often get a lot more interaction from our followers, which helps with the algorithm, which helps people see our stuff more when we are posting, hey, there's a special this weekend, come in and see this. So those type of posts are really great for your strategy from a social media standpoint because it gets people engaged with you on the platform that may not typically like a picture of a plate of fried chicken or come out and play mini golf. So there's a real, again, beneficial strategy to us as operators in doing that too.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to pass things over to Kristen, who is, like I said, the manager of advocacy communications here at the National Restaurant Association. Kristen, take it away.
Hi, everybody. So basically what we have here for you are a couple of draft social posts that you can use. So really what we want you to use is the hashtag serving up action and tagging the Restaurants Act account. If you also want to tag We Are Restaurants, you're more than welcome to do that. It's just that the Restaurants Act account is our advocacy platform, but we're happy to retweet and share everything on both accounts. So basically for your restaurant tour, we have an option, your roundtable discussion, we have an option, and your district meeting all have options with additional potential hashtags. So basically when you are posting, just remember that depending on the platform, particularly X and or Twitter, you do have a limit of how many characters you have with the post right there. You should be able to fit everything. Make sure that you're tagging your restaurant from your post and you're also tagging the member that you're meeting with. If you don't tag the member, they're not as likely to reshare your content, which makes it a little bit harder for you guys to get any sort of traction from that post. Also, when it comes to doing these posts, you can always send them the link afterwards. Whoever your contact is in the district office, just reach out to them and be like, hey, we posted this on social media. We'd be happy to have you share it as well. And generally speaking, they're happy to do that. And if you need additional content options, please feel free to reach out to Grant. I'm happy to draft anything for you or look over anything for you guys. Grant, next slide. So for taking pictures, I know taking pictures isn't always the most fun thing for everybody because sometimes they turn out blurry or the lighting's not great or whatever. But here are some just like quick opportunities and tips for you guys. Generally speaking, I would suggest that you do vertical photos just because for vertical, you can always crop it to be horizontal, but horizontal, you can't crop it to be vertical. So basically, when you have a vertical photo, this is best for your Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, and then horizontal photos work well for any of the other platforms, but you can always use a vertical photo on any platform. Doesn't matter which one. It's just a horizontal photo isn't going to work for any sort of stories, that type of thing. And just a reminder, vertical, horizontal. So just always be prepared when you're doing social media. And I know that might seem weird to think about vertical and horizontal photos, but it really does make a difference. Especially just think about your lighting. Sometimes lighting isn't great depending on where you're at. And you guys do tend to have overhead lighting in your restaurants. So just think about that when you're taking the photo. But otherwise, you should be all good to go. And if you ever have any questions or you forget to take a photo, generally speaking, a member of their team has taken a photo and they'll either post it and you'll see it that way, or you can always reach out to them and be like, hey, I noticed one of your team members was taking photos. Do you mind sharing that with us? Because we'd love to share that the member came to our restaurant or we chatted with them. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I will turn it back over to Grant.
Thanks, Kristen. So lastly, what are the asks? Matt Walker, the Senior Vice President of Government Affairs, is going to hop in here and just go over, what are we asking of members of Congress in these meetings? Matt?
Yeah, sure. First, thank you again, everybody, for doing all this. We do appreciate it, and for you to continuously answer the call. I'm going to briefly mention these asks. I don't want to stick too firmly on any of them because this stuff can change. It can change based on many things. It can change based on timing of when something is coming up in the Senate or House. It can also change on if it's a House member or senator, as well as who they may be. If the person may be on a particular committee, we may have a particular piece that we would like to make sure that you also get through to them. And that's why it's so important that you talk to us in advance, because we'd love to be able to share that information with you. Maybe there's something that the senator or House member particularly did that you want to thank them for. Maybe they're on a key committee and there's going to be an upcoming hearing. Sharing that information will help us to tailor that message. For now, though, the top issues that we're going to be talking about in the near future have to do with the tax policy around the tax reconciliation bill. We've talked about this on this call several times in the past, so I won't belabor it very much. But as a brief reminder, and all this stuff will be in all your materials with background stuff, so you have it, the three top priorities that we have for the tax reconciliation bill that Congress is working on is to restore full deductibility of expenses. So if you went out and purchased, for instance, equipment or other things, you could deduct all that up front in the first year. So that you can then have more cash on hand to reinvest into your business, your employees, and other things. Another piece of that is the QBI deduction, it says here. That's 199A of the tax code. That is when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passed in 2017. There were efforts to reduce the corporate rate. And people said, that's great for corporations, but what about for everybody that's not a corporation? What are we going to do for them? And what they did is they said, let's take 20% of their qualified business income right off the top and not subject it to tax. So right now, 20% of your income, if you're not a corporation, you're not taxed on at all. That expires at the end of this year. We're working to get that extended, ideally permanently, which is how it is in the House version of the bill that's currently out there now. And then the final piece has to do with interest deduction and the formula that they used to allow you to deduct as much of your interest as possible if you have to take out loans. And there will be information on that as well in your material. That is the tax policy piece. There's other things that we care about in the bill from a tax perspective, but those are the top three. In terms of timing, the Senate is working on their version of the bill right now. They have a very aggressive goal of trying to get this done before the 4th of July. And they're really trying to hit that. The president's pressuring them to do so, but I think that there's a very good chance that it could slip beyond then. And then the two bodies are going to have to get together. They're going to have to figure out the differences between the Senate versions of the bill and the House version, and then come up with one version that can pass in both chambers afterwards. So this will be going on for a while. If I had to guess, this could stretch into, again, the president would love to see everything done by the 4th of July or shortly after. I think it could stretch later into the end of July, going towards August. Then swipe fees. So just an update. I know everyone here knows what the Credit Card Competition Act is, so I don't have to go through what it does on the call. Of course, I'm happy to do that. To give you an update, several of you have reached out, and thank you so much for answering the call and reaching out to offices to try to get a vote on the Genius Act. For those who forget, the Genius Act is legislation currently pending in the Senate, which would regulate the cryptocurrency industry, and it would set up a regulatory framework for crypto to essentially legitimize crypto. We were hoping to get an amendment vote on the Credit Card Competition Act as part of the consideration of that bill. We weren't the only groups seeking votes. There were several votes and amendments that were being sought by Republicans, Democrats, people on both sides, many sides of different issues. And the decision was made by leadership in the Senate that the agreement on Genius was very tight in terms of getting to 60 votes that would be needed, and that they chose to forgo an amendment process because they were afraid that if they started amending the bill and making changes, that the bill could not pass. They highlight the fact that there were 80 amendments in committee on the Genius Act, 40 of which were accepted, and then additional agreements after that. And so they just felt like, if there were additional amendments that they wouldn't be able to pass it. We disagree, but that's where we are. So unfortunately, not only us, but no one is likely to get a vote on the Genius Act. If it moves forward as planned by leadership, they're just going to close down all amendments. And if senators agree, which it looks like it is, we won't get a vote. So what happens next? We want to continue to grow support and momentum for the issue. We've had a lot of great developments recently, getting the coalition broader and more diverse. We've got labor unions behind it. We had in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we got the largest coalition of Indian tribes in the nation supporting this legislation. We got consumer groups and others. We want to keep the pressure on. Senator Scott, who's the chair of the Senate's Banking Committee, and this is Tim Scott from South Carolina, has promised to have a hearing on this. And so we're working towards that as well, so that we can highlight it. It's not the best place for us to have a hearing because the Banking Committee, frankly, has a lot of close connections with the industry, but we want to still get our voice heard within that. So we'll continue to push on that front as well. One piece I will say on the Credit Card Competition Act, I heard some people mention, should we be talking about the state law stuff around the remittance of sales tax back to the states and that you get charged on it. My personal perspective is why that's informative, so that they learn about all these things that are unfair that you're having to do. I don't personally love as much the conversation with federal legislators around that aspect. And the only reason why is the Credit Card Competition Act doesn't address that. It's a state issue. And it confuses the federal legislators when they're looking and thinking, well, is this something the Credit Card Competition Act would fix? How do we address that? It's really a separate issue for the states that the states are dealing with, an important issue, but I just think it's good to keep them focused on what we're looking at for them to try to fix and what our solution would be relative to them versus stuff that they don't vote on or, they're not serving in the state legislature. But that's my perspective on that one.
Perfect.
Anything else on that? Sorry.
Before we open up to question and answer, I want to close up really quick just by saying thank you to everyone for coming. You'll be receiving an email tomorrow containing the recording of this call and all of the documents that you'll need for the Summer of Action. We have a toolkit for the Hill Runners that just goes over a lot of this information that we covered on this deck, and we'll be sending you all of our updated policy briefs that you can take into your meetings and give to your lawmakers. So with that, I want to open things up for any questions that anyone might have, be that on Summer of Action or on policy. And thank you again for being here.
I just want to give one quick contextual update to how you all should think about swipe fees. I agree with Matt's assessment that I don't think it's going to move this year. I don't think that folks need to talk about, I don't think folks need to talk about the Genius Act. I think it's just simply a swipe fees are getting worse.
Is now exiting.
Swipe fees are getting worse. This issue, Congress cannot continue to kick the can. You don't need to get into what the vehicle is or why it's not moving. All you need is solutions. All you need is action. So you can express disappointment if you want and say it looks like the Senate's not going to bring it up, but it's more of a when is Congress going to take this on? Why haven't you done anything on a duopoly that is now our third largest cost? So you don't need to get too sucked up into the mechanics of the legislation. You're a restaurant operator. You're not a legislative tactician. Let them tell you what the solution is going to be to address skyrocketing swipe fees and the fact that Europe pays 7 times more than our European counterparts. Let them defend why there's inaction.
That's a good point, Sean. Sorry, I should have made that clear. I was giving you more of that background for your own information if you've gotten the updates. But yeah, no, he makes a good point there. It's not about that bill.
No, and Matt, that's the difference, and that's why, and honestly, that's the difference between the Hill Runner update and the update I give on my 90-second updates. We don't talk about these. I absolutely agree with everything. I agree with your perspective, Matt, and the context is helpful for this group because these folks, in my mind, are a little bit more of a legislative tactician. Thank you in advance. Than the average grassroots advocate. So absolutely, that context I think is really helpful for this group, Matt.
Got it. Thanks.
Robbie, I saw your hand go up first.
Yeah, just a quick question, and I say this representative of our folks in our industry in our state because we don't do this. Minnesota is one of the few states that has permitted credit card surcharge, right? So, and a lot of the restaurant operators in our state who had been used to other service charges which are now not allowed, have chosen to adopt a credit card surcharge, right? Again, I say this representative of the industry, not something our restaurant does. However, in Minnesota, and the whole point of this is I think there's a premise for federal action because in the law in Minnesota says you can charge a credit card surcharge on all credit cards provided that you just don't charge debit cards. And in a world where federal regulation or legislation might be helpful, American Express has its own rule that says you're not allowed to surcharge its cards unless you surcharge all cards, including debit cards, right? So those operators who have an American Express deal and who are also prone to want to do a credit card surcharge can't do it, right? And it, you know, I know that there are moments when we think about where should the federal legislation come in. So this is a bigger, you know, it's a broader topic. And I don't know if it's precisely in the swipe fee conversation, but it does bode toward a reason for there being a national rule on these things as opposed to their, you know, a state by state problem where we run into conflicts like this. That's just it's a question. If anybody has the insight, that's great. But I just thought I'd throw that out there because it suggests a reason for, you know, common rules across the country.
That's good context. Thank you. That's good context to keep in mind. I think the other credit cards usually say the same thing, that if you surcharge for anyone, then you have to do for everyone. But that twist on it with the debit card piece was an interesting fact. So I'll take that back to our policy guy and talk to him about that.
Thanks, Matt. And just so you know, the MasterCard Visa world, doesn't seem to have this. One of the other worlds that I sit on the Toast customer advisory board, and when they go try to implement a compliant product, right? So they're trying to be very compliant. A compliant product, what they run into is customers that have both an American Express agreement and Visa, and and Toast does the processing. They just can't give them a product that's compliant, right? Because you can't do it. So we can talk more offline, Matt, about it. But I think there's there's something there that could use some attention.
Thank you.
All right, Gary, you had your hand up next.
Yeah, this question is a little bit of it's a big anomaly and it doesn't apply to most people. But here in Northern Virginia, most of you heard we lost our longtime Congressman Gerry Connolly. I'm speaking on behalf of Sarah White, who is the Hill runner for Gerry Connolly, and she's not here today. So I just thought her and I had a private conversation about this. I guess my question is this. Obviously, he's going to be replaced. Is it out of bounds for us to talk to some of the candidates in a roundtable type discussion, or do we wait until someone's elected?
I can give my opinion on that. My opinion on that is that it's always good to engage everybody early on, particularly, you might not want to look like you're appearing to pick sides in the race, right? And so if it's something that's very visible and it's out there and it looks like you're actually weighing in on the race or endorsing someone, that might have ramifications. But certainly talking to people when they're running about the issues that matter to you and what it is always good, because a lot of times they'll make commitments or promises as part of their election, and it's helpful for them to hear it up front. So that's my take.
Thank you.
All right, Brooks, I see your hand up as well.
Just kind of echoing one person in the comments. Thanks for everything that you guys are doing at the national level. Grant, Matt, Sean, Mike, everybody. So I've got a few things to touch base on. Robbie, I'm really glad that you mentioned the Toast component. We are also Toast customers, and we've had communication with Toast about this surcharge policy that is compliant. We also have a American Express contract, and after reviewing everything, we do about $200,000 a year in sales through American Express, but we could offset $100,000 to $120,000 in credit card swipe fees. So we are strongly considering dropping American Express, knowing that most consumers carry something else other than that, either a Visa or a MasterCard credit card or a debit card or cash, and being able to offset the fees. So that's it's interesting that you put that on there. I'm going to put my email in the comments,
real quick,
Robin.
Brooks, yeah, let's do that. Let's connect offline. I think there's another solution within Toast that might help that, given that your American Express, that they really are in the $1 million or more club. So we can talk offline, Brooks. Let's connect, and I'll be happy to try to help.
Okay, I'll throw my email address in the comments for you. We had Mike Miller from Tennessee and Memphis was just on Capitol Hill with NFIB doing some visits, and he was able to visit with Senator Blackburn's office. I know that she was one of the holds on the CCCA moving forward. I don't know fully how those holds work. I'm not super familiar with that from a legislative standpoint, but he got to sit down with her. And at the end of the discussion, bring that topic up, he said her demeanor, visibly changed. That she was very frustrated with the act itself. At least on the surface, what she's saying to him appears to be procedural. She said that I guess Senator Marshall had an opportunity to bring the bill before a hearing, before a committee, and did not do that. So she was frustrated that there was not an opportunity to, I guess, go through it further or anything like that. I don't know if that is the actual reason that she has a hold
Yeah.
on it, or if that's
Ye-
just kind of what she's using.
Yeah, that's sort of an excuse, a cop out, I think, that a lot of people use to try to not have to vote on it. We have asked for hearings now for years on the credit card comp, and there's letters. This bill sponsors have written to the chair and ranking member of the Senate Banking Committee literally for multiple years saying, please have a hearing, and they won't. And they kept trying, and that's because they wanted to avoid it, right? They didn't want to have it. There have been numerous hearings on the issue, including on the particular bill. In the Judiciary Committee, there was a hearing last November. And so we've asked for the hearing. The one thing that some Republicans are saying is, look, Senator Scott is new as chair of the committee.
Sorry,
Give
I'm
him
on a
chance.
call. So what'd you say?
Give him a chance because he's promised to give you a hearing and he will have a hearing. And so that is sort of the way to try to push it over there. I'll be honest, like, we still want to have a hearing there. But I will say it's not really a great place for us to have a hearing, because if you're on the banking committee, you either worked for the banking industry, have close relationships with the banking industry, or the banking industry is really, really heavy in your state. It's very lopsided, and that's not for every senator. And I'm not trying to say that it's not, but it's just not the best venue for us. But we still want to have one there, and we're going to continue to push it. But back to the original question, I think that that's an excuse for a lot of people to say, oh, we're not going to do it for procedural reasons, when there's not much that's going to change procedurally on this.
Sure, Mike and I agree
And
with
that-
that,
and that-
too. Go ahead, Sean.
And I think you just it's okay to say, listen, I'm a restaurant operator. I haven't touched Robert's Rules of Order since high school. You don't need to be. I think it's say, okay, so you don't like that they're, accept that whatever the excuse is. Okay, so what are the next steps then? What are the steps that you are going to take, Senator, to provide to finally inject competition? Because the status quo isn't working. If she's going to say you're not going to get relief because of parliamentary process issues, good Lord, they're in the majority. It's like lead.
Yeah, and I always say to people, like I've said this to senators many times, said, look, the people back home whose businesses are closing and who are struggling, the last thing they want to hear is about process in Washington, D.C. That's the last thing they care about, right? They want to see fixes and solutions. But this is why I will say it is important to know in advance if you're going to have one of these people in your coming by your establishment, because if I knew someone was on the Senate Banking Committee, I would have some very specific talking points for that individual for you to maybe bring up. Like, okay, if you don't think the CCCA is a solution, what is your solution, and what do you think needs to be done, and what's the timeline, and how quickly can we have this hearing? And so that's why it's nice to have these advance notice when you're going to have these people coming through.
Yeah. So at the end of the conversation, Mike did say, it's kind of, how do we fix this? And her response to him, point blank, was, we need to have a hearing.
Yeah.
So take that as you will, and y'all have definitely some better insights into that. I was just passing along the information he gave me this morning.
That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last thing I would say is somebody said, showing them the actual credit card statements. That just was a light bulb in my head. I think that's brilliant. It's so simple. It's so black and white. You don't have to show them any of the other financials of the business. But you're saying, this is what I'm spending. This is what I'm spending per month, or this is what I'm spending in the quarter or in the year. And in my head, I see Sean going to a joint session of Congress and dumping a bunch of bags of credit card statements onto the floor and saying, look at what we're spending. Look at what these operators are spending, and having a Mr. Smith Goes to Washington or Miracle on 44th Street moment. So I think that was a really brilliant idea, and I think that the more we can show those little simple black and white, here's the problem with dollars and cents that we're facing. So that's all I got.
Brooks, to go along with that, then you ask them to explain it to you, because explain all these charges that are at the bottom of the statement for me.
Yeah,
I like that.
Hey Brooks, so this is Jay. I was the one that showed that statement, and the aide that took it was, John, we were quiet for 4 or 5 minutes. He's trying to figure out which end was up on it. It's a 6-page statement for 1 month.
Yeah.
Listing every type of credit card.
It's insane.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions before we wrap things up? Okay, well, thank you guys all for coming. Just important note on these meetings. like Matt said, these bills are moving quickly. So please try and reach out sooner than later on some of these things. Oh, Bill, I just see your hand went up.
Yeah, how you doing? I don't know if everyone's experiencing this around the country, but this is kind of the elephant in the room. Has anybody heard anything about toning down the immigration thing? Because here in Key West, it's pretty much low-hanging fruit down here. And I've never seen anything like this before at all. And I know Trump came out today and said that he's going to try to do something to mitigate the issue with farmers, farmer workers. And I know this is off topic, and I apologize, but I'm just kind of curious if you guys are experiencing the same around that I am down here.
That's a great question, and I think it's great to share that you're sending this. We've heard from numerous people. People on this call have been texting, emailing, talking to us about it. I know that we have reached out to the White House to try to get more information about what the plan is, how far that would extend. Trying to gather information on it. We don't have any more. I will say it's going to get even more heated. Pete, you mentioned a big piece. Senator Alex Padilla from California today was handcuffed, visibly forced to the ground, etc. And that's going to just amp up the scrutiny around what's happening as well. So short answer is we're watching it, we're hearing it, we're reaching out to the White House, try to find out more about what might be coming and to make sure that restaurants are kept in mind in that process. Sean, I don't know if you had anything additional to add, but.
Yeah, is my audio working, Matt?
Yes, it is. Yep.
I mean, one of the challenges we have is just what the White House says is this is what Donald Trump campaigned on, friends. You know, a secure the borders, kick them out kind of approach. We are getting a lot more. We are getting a lot more anecdotal information or takes of increased immigration enforcement. I just asked the team to look into updating our toolkit for what operators should do if there's an ICE raid or if there's an audit. The White House right now is very unapologetic. I do think that there is, as Matt said, there is talk about executive branch action on behalf of the ag industry, meat packers, etc. Because if that industry goes down, that industry relies on undocumented workers, let's be honest. And if they go down, we go down. So agree with Matt. There are no great solutions at this point. I feel like it's almost like tariffs. This White House does not move away until they've been burned for a little bit. And we saw that on tariffs. We may have to see that on some of this immigration action as well. Until it's affecting the economy or popular opinion in a meaningful way, the White House mindset is we are fulfilling a campaign promise.
And I will tell you, thank you for that, Sean. I appreciate it. One of the tools that I use, all of my managers have my E-Verify list. And it's one of the tools that we use. It's they all have it. And if people were to come in, they just put them against E-Verify, and it's an easy way for verification. I don't have an issue personally with what's happening, for the reasons criminals, undocumented. I get all that. The one part I don't get, the component of this, is the people who do have papers, who are being picked up and who are, in my case, sent to Miami, which is 200 miles north of us, and then verified there and then sent back. And that's the component of it that I kind of, it's a head scratcher to me, because they do have their proper documentation. They have everything proper. They're still being taken away. And that's what's happening right now in Key West, Florida. They're being taken away and they're being returned, but they're gone for 3 days. And I'm down an employee just because someone wants to verify it, when they could very easily go to E-Verify and check it against this list, because it's a government website.
Thanks for that.
Bill, I'll just add to you that, and I've shared this with the team, that we're on the second floor of a building where the third floor is the immigration courts, and there are buses parked outside every day, news stations every day, people being arrested every day, women with children. There were 2 protests in downtown San Antonio yesterday. There's 2 scheduled for Saturday. We're now having to, and we operate both, downtown restaurants and suburb, but we're now having to communicate with team members about it being safe to come to work. We're training managers on how to handle things if an ICE agent were to come into the restaurant. So it's gotten pretty bad. We've been fortunate enough, to hire several Venezuelan employees who have, I think they call it TPS, temporary parole. Forget what the S stands for now, but anyway, some of whom have hearings
Temporary
scheduled
protected
until
status.
yes, that temporary protected status until March of next year, and they're receiving letters being told that they have 48 hours to leave the country. Now, I mean, we're 2 hours from the border in Laredo, and it's one thing if you're a Mexican and you get kicked back to Mexico and you're 2 hours away from the border. It's a whole nother matter if you're from Venezuela, and you've now got 48 hours to leave the country. So it's been really hectic here.
And I think it's just worth to have the conversation, at least.
Yep. The TPS issue has been a problem for a lot of operators because talking about Venezuela, these are people who've been in this country for a dozen years now. They're not back of the house; they are managers. There's a lot of investment that's been made in getting them online, and they're a big part of the restaurant operations.
Well, thank you for the info, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for that perspective.
Yeah.
I wanted to give, because I know there was a question about state actions. I agreed with Matt on not going down the rabbit hole of discussing state bills too much with the federal elected. But Mike Watley, do you want to give just the 60-second update on where are we on interchange reform at the state level?
Yeah, I mean, not to sugarcoat it, it's been a tough year. Illinois last year was the first state to take action on it. And the way that was done was kind of last minute, late night budget negotiations, and it was just kind of dropped in and passed before the banks had an opportunity to mobilize. This year we had bills introduced in 25 states and tried to run a more traditional legislative play of hearings and grassroots activity and that sort of thing. We got it out of the House in Colorado, which was great. That was as far as it got anywhere, unfortunately. It was just very clear that when this went through the normal process, there was a lot of resistance. We heard from our New York State Association that banking and credit card lobbyists would meet with individual lawmakers dozens of times to push back. And then just the amount of money that was flooding into the system. So we're going to use the summer to regroup and figure out where we go next year. There's still a couple bills that are technically still alive at the state level, but it was a tough year. But at the same time, the fact that we forced the banks to spend a lot of the state level is good. They were spending big. They were buying out newsletters that we know are $50,000 a week to push back on this. So it was good, and then it diverted some of their resources. It kept the conversation going. But in terms of actually getting across the finish line, it was a challenge. We learned a lot, and we'll try it again next year.
Every year, we are so much farther along in Washington on this issue than we were 4 months ago, Matt. I know you'd agree. And same thing, Mike. No one was talking about this issue 2 years ago, Mike. So we know how slow change comes, but we know that the arc here is bending towards us. It's just really slowly. That's why we appreciate everybody's patience. We appreciate everybody continuing to make this an issue. This is how you get it done. No one's going to beat the banks in 1 year, but we are so much better. I feel so much better about our prospects than I did 4 months ago. 2 weeks ago, Matt. The fact that Matt and the team have just gotten a bill. Every Washington trade rag is talking about credit card swipe fees. We weren't even on anyone's radar. And now people are like, oh, crap, I need to learn about this issue because it's going to come to the floor. And it's going to come to the floor sooner than any of us think. So even though Mike is disappointed, even though Matt's disappointed, even though I'm disappointed, we are all still a step closer than we were 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and it's because of this group, small businesses, retailers, and we appreciate it.
Hey, Matt, I know I missed this on my earlier thing. Are y'all keeping an eye on beneficial ownership information and reporting? There's a Senate 100 and House 425. This is a kind of a passion project of Mike Miller I mentioned earlier, but there's a bill that is there to eliminate and delete information that's already been done about beneficial ownership information. reporting. There's been a lot of wishy-washy in the last couple of years. Mike's report on that as of this morning was that Representative David Kustoff was the last Tennessee representative that had not signed on as a co-sponsor. He has as of this morning. I think the bill in the House has like 140 something co-sponsors. And so I just wanted to pass that along for his sake as well. I'm not sure if y'all are keeping an eye on that at the national level or anything, but that's HR 425 and Senate 100.
425, Senate 100. Yeah, I'm familiar with it. We haven't spent a lot of time on it. We spent time on it before when it first came out. There's regulation on it and trying to push back because of how onus it was on small businesses to have to do all the reporting. But I haven't taken a look at this bill, but we'll take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, we have gone about 13 minutes over. Thank you, everybody, including those that have stuck around those extra 13 minutes. Again, this bill, the tax bill, is moving quickly. So if you could schedule these meetings sooner than later, that would be really helpful. Be looking for the email from me with this call recording and all the other resources. And with that, have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You guys
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks for
Thank
all
you.
you do.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for everything. Bye-bye.